All right. Hello. Welcome back to the Nancecast. I'm really glad you could make it to this one. This one is going to be excellent. Here in about 45 minutes, I will be joined by my friend, my homeboy, my compadre, Mr. Michael Downs. Let's give him a round of applause. All right, Mikey. Very, very, very happy to have you on. This is actually your debut episode, your debut appearance on 3 Billion Nances and your debut on the Nancecast. So I'm very happy to have you on. And today we'll be discussing artificial intelligence, A.G.I, SI. And like I said, we haven't had the conversation yet. I'm recording this beforehand, so I don't know. I'm not going to give you a roadmap. I'm just going to tell you what it is. Mikey and I have been talking about doing something with some kind of regularity where we take some of the discussions we're already having about theory and philosophy, and just, make videos and make podcast episodes out of it. We're already discussing lots of stuff: AI, accelerationism, theories of time, A time, B time, all at once, or Sudoku, these things. But yeah, we want to do something with some kind of regularity. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but I am excited. It's going to be dope. Mikey is the homie. Mikey is the Dangerous Maybe on Substack and YouTube. If you're not already subscribed, you should be, so go correct that. But I'm just gonna believe that everyone who's seeing this and hearing this is already subscribed to Mikey. You're gonna want to make sure to pay attention to the Dangerous Maybe on YouTube. Here in the near future, there will be a lot of exciting things happening over there. So make sure you turn on notifications. The links will be down in the description for anyone who isn't already subscribed. But like I said, yeah, you're all already subscribed. This is going to be great. Like I said, it's just going to be kind of a broad discussion. No real agenda. I've got some notes. Mikey's got some notes. But we just want to kick some ideas around and have a discussion, and make the conversations we're already having, make it public, because we want to get in there. AI is a huge topic. The overwhelming majority of people who are discussing it, though, aren't coming at it from a philosophical perspective, or at least the same philosophical perspective that we share, and we think it's important. So thanks for coming along. Make sure to stick around. This one's going to be excellent, and we will see you soon. Actually, I'll be right back, and Mike, you'll be here with me.
It's the best podcast ever. Welcome, you're listening to the Nancecast.
And now we are recording. Dude, what's up, dude?
What up?
What's cracking?
How goes it?
I'm chilling, man. Your fucking setup looks crispy back there,
Different,
dude.
huh?
Looks good.
Different from the last time. Yeah. It's amazing what a couple light bulbs will do for you.
Yeah, dude. Sound good too. I'm excited. I'm very excited. We have been talking about artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence, synthetic intelligence, human intelligence, like intelligence as such. Like we've been talking about this for a while, but we've never actually just sat down to discuss it.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. There are a lot of people talking about AI on the internet, but the overwhelming majority of them are coming at it from a very instrumental position already, like the hard sciences. They're coming at it from computer science or systems theory, maths, stuff like that. There are some, but there are not a whole lot. Shout out Cadell. You've been doing good work all along, and other people as well. We mentioned Julie Resch in our talk before we started, but there's only a few people who have a love for and background in, or at least familiarity with, continental theory, philosophy as such, who are really discussing artificial intelligence, theory of mind, and intelligence once again in general, because to problematize artificial intelligence, you really should talk about the artificial, the technological side, but you also really need to ask the questions about intelligence. A lot of these hard sciences people don't interrogate intelligence itself.
Or the human. They take the human for granted.
Exactly. Well, and we, just the other day, we coined a neologism.
Our little brainstorm session. We came up with two terms? Two
terms.
Little distinction.
So background on these terms, I told you, like, hey, so I've been using intelligence and intellect to distinguish between machine intelligence and human intelligence, but that's not satisfying because Bergson juxtaposes intuition and intellect, and that's a valid point. He's doing something worth taking seriously when he does that. And so I wasn't satisfied with using intellect to represent spirit and like this kind of dialectical process of human intelligence as opposed to just rote instrumental reason. So I was like, we need to come up with a way to say it quick and easy, like what I was trying to achieve with intelligence and intellect, but that falls short. And you came back like off the dome. You're like, well, what about these two new words, Mintelligence and Hintelligence?
Yeah.
And I fucking love it, dude.
I do too. I mean, it's not just, put the M on intelligence and for machine intelligence and the H on intelligence for human intelligence. It's unique what they give us. Right, because I mean, you were pointing out about Mintelligence. You want to say it? Yeah.
So Marvin Minsky is a systems theory guy. Herman Minkowski is a mathematician. Like Minkowski space is like the representation of physical space minus gravity. And like Marvin Minsky was a computer scientist. So there's this cool little resonance, Minkowski, Minsky, but it also like minimum, like Mintelligence represents like the minimum floor of what it takes to be recognized as intelligence. So intelligence means you can act in a goal-oriented way in and on the world. It's proficiency at playing games. It's problem solving. It's all this kind of like stuff that algorithms can do. So it's the minimum threshold of intelligence, but people are satisfied to just stay there with instrumental reason. But I like it because it's already diminutive. Like we're already saying Mintelligence is the minimum. Like that's our floor. And then over here with the human side, we're soaring up in the clouds, and the machine intelligence guys are down here at the basement.
Yeah, and I mean, so yes, and then on the Hintelligence side, what I like about it is the first, if you want to think of it as a prefix, the first syllable is hint, and doesn't that really get at something about our kind of intelligence, that we are able to take hints, which is we are able to interpret, pick up on, and respond to unspoken, uncoded dynamics. I mean, that's uniquely, there's the hat, right? The old Dasein hat over here. That's what Dasein does for Heidegger, is Dasein is able to figure out how to get it right, how to navigate without coded explicit rules. And that's the weird type of intelligence we have, where it doesn't have to be coded for us to get it right. Now, sometimes we encounter a lack in the social structure, in the symbolic order, and we don't know how to proceed. That's true. That happens. But oftentimes we don't have to have an already existing explicit rule to go off of in order to navigate the situation. And in that sense, it's like we're taking a hint, but in a broader sense of hint.
That's
right.
So fucking
and
good,
so
dude.
I like this idea of Hintelligence in
That's so
good. For that
good.
reason.
And I think too, like it points to like the the transcendental nature of like human intelligence. Like the world is very much like a paint by numbers. Like the framework is there, but by way of the transcendental, like we do work to fill in the blanks. We do work by way of interpretation, by way of perception, that can be faulty and could be mistaken. But like we are already implicated in the world around us by this like transcendental way. And yeah, like we fill in the gaps. And what do you do when you're playing puzzles? You play with hints. You get a hint to solve the puzzle. So you come to the puzzle, the pieces are there, but you are implicated in assembling the picture. And that's the way the world works.
Right. I mean, and I mean, the point is a hint gives you something to respond to, but you ultimately have to be creative with the response. And so creativity is baked into the response to a hint. And, I mean, isn't that the issue with our chat bots? Can they really solve problems? Can we right now? Can we say, hey, poverty is a structural problem in society? Just tell us how to solve that. It can't. Or even tell it to like, hey, I think I heard Todd McGowan say this on a recent episode of Y Theory, where he's like, can you tell it to solve Russell's paradox? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to give us anything new in the sense of like responding to a hint. Sure, it can combine things we already have and give us something new in that way, but does it actually break ground?
Yeah.
Not yet.
And I mean,
so.
to jump the gun a little bit, but yeah, if you told an AI right now, like if they came up with, you know, the most powerful AI that exists and they released it to, we'll say Canada, because Canada, they're nice people there. So Canada gets their hands on, you know, Google bot 9 million X or whatever, and they say solve poverty. I think it's highly likely that the machine would say, well, the quickest way to solve this problem is get rid of the cause of the problem. What is ultimately the cause of poverty? What is the cause of human poverty? It's a human problem. If we just get rid of humans, human poverty will go away.
See, and that we're already pointing ahead to this issue concerning orthogonality, which we're going to get to.
Yeah, man.
In this discussion, but no, I mean, see, it brings us back to that big issue, and I mean, like, I understand both sides of this argument. I tend to, I kind of just spontaneously, I see how Bostrom gets to where he gets. It makes a lot of sense to me. I also see how Land comes back and critiques it, but we are getting ahead. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
As far as like the hint intelligence, though, look, I think a lot of what we're doing is always going to be drawing from Baudrillard, and he's one of our core thinkers. And there's this great quote where Baudrillard basically is describing the whole situation back in the 90s, where the great chess player played the chess
Deep Blue, Gary Kasparov, and Deep Blue, was it?
I think that's it. So let me find it here. I got the quote. It's worth reading here.
Interestingly enough, Kasparov actually went on to work I think he worked with Stephen Wolfram in AI development, but he was fucking pissed when the machine beat him. He was very publicly pissed.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame him on that. But I in my book I quote this, and so just for context, I'll read the paragraph before I quote it. Now I'm talking about Hubert Dreyfus here, who wrote one of the most famous critiques of artificial intelligence. Dreyfus's critique of AI boils down to this: we cannot program machines to have our type of intelligence precisely because our intelligence is itself not programmed. Again, it takes hints.
Yeah, man.
In that sense. But what happens if AI programmers actually were to take some of Dreyfus's criticism seriously and find a way to program AI in such a way as to mimic our own non-programmed intelligence. In some way, is this not what's going on with deep learning programs? Once the deep learning crosses certain thresholds, there's no way for us to even understand what's going on in the program as it develops its own neural network. The Netflix film AlphaGo documents all this as world-class Go players attempt to beat the computer program AlphaGo at the board game. Spoiler alert, the humans end up losing to the AI. And even earlier, in 1996 and 1997, world chess champion Garry Kasparov played chess against an IBM supercomputer named Deep Blue. Kasparov won the first match, whereas Deep Blue won the second, which was of huge significance in the history of the relation between human and machine. In his analysis of the situation, Baudrillard wrote, "But to come back to Kasparov, if he won, it was surely because he is, metaphorically, capable of speaking more than one language, that of the emotions, of intuition, of the stratagem, in a word, the language of play, not to mention the language of calculation, whereas Deep Blue speaks only the language of calculation. The day this latter language prevails in whatever form, Kasparov will be beaten. The day man himself speaks only that single language, the language of computers, he will be beaten." And so this list that he names off. So we don't just speak the language of calculation. We speak the language of emotions, intuition, stratagem, and play. And all of this is tied up with what Baudrillard calls symbolic exchange. And symbolic exchange, of course, is where you exchange gifts or values. He don't like the word value. He's gonna oppose value to symbolic exchange, but loosely using the term, symbolic exchange creates values that are not coded or programmed. They are between the individuals exchanging. They are local values. This is what we mean a lot of the time by sentimental value.
Mm-hmm.
And but this really gets at this difference between us and machines. And it's funny, the whole thing with Hintelligence. I love that you responded with Hintuition.
Yeah,
right?
dude.
Intuition is some kind of intelligence that knows the situation without having it explicitly codified for it.
Yeah.
And so I like that he lists that there. But yeah, this is what we're very much interested in, is this divide between machine intelligence and human intelligence, and exploring what that divide entails.
And I feel like, not to be sensational, and I often find myself like doing caveats and qualifying, but I do feel like our time is short. I do feel like Baudrillard says we, essentially what he's saying, to sum that up, not all what he's saying, but part of what he's saying there is the more human than human argument. Like Philip K. Dick was not saying we're building machines that are hyper real and thus better than us. He's saying we are changing. Like our thought, human thought, this intelligence is being replaced by this mintelligence. We are the ones who are changing. It's not that we're being replaced by the newer, better model. It's that we are dumbing ourselves down, to speak crudely, to this very rote, very arithmetic way of thinking. We've thrown out play and emotion and intuition, and we've replaced it with just calculation. Because capital has captured planet Earth, because it's this global system of exchange, we can't have local value or sentimental value or symbolic exchange. Everything has to be global exchange. It has to be commensurate under the system of capital. We all only speak one language anymore, and it's the language of exchange value. Well, not exchange value, because we go on to sign value, fractal value. I want to come up with waste as opposed to value, but the language that we speak has been captured. We aren't allowed to create or even hold dearly sentimental value anymore, because we are changing. It's not that the robots are coming to take your jobs. Same thing with immigration. People that here in Arizona that yell about immigration, they're not out there picking celery or picking peaches. They're not coming to take your jobs. Same thing. The machines are not coming to replace us. We are dumbing ourselves down. And I do feel like we're living in a moment. And if we don't do something, there will be no human. I do think Nick is right, Land. If nothing changes, nothing human will make it out of the near future.
Yeah. Or will the cute. So hold on. Before we go to that. So I think it's interesting, though, considering that when we spoke to Nick Land, how did he define intelligence? It's the ability to play games. And it's funny, Baudrillard is saying, yeah, but I think Baudrillard would say to Nick, he'd go, sure, but there's more to games than just calculation.
Ooh.
And because Nick isn't going to include this human component of emotions and intuition and these uniquely human capabilities. He would just say intelligence as such is the ability to play and probably increase your ability to play games successfully, right?
Nick is satisfied with Mintelligence.
Yeah. And he thinks the human is an obstacle. Human intelligence, sure, the machine's going to have to use the human to break through, to transcend us. So, yeah, we're like its host.
Where it's reproductive organs. You know, thank you, Marshall McLuhan. Yeah. We are the sex organs of the machine.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, for Baudrillard, he would say that, I mean, they would both, Land and Baudrillard would agree that this process is chipping away at us as humans. Baudrillard wants us to find ways to resist it via symbolic exchange and the utilization of seduction and other strategies, fatal strategies. But Land is just give in to resistance is futile. Give in to the process, right?
And I think it's a delicate balance, because I've often said Nick Land is right. Now, I don't think I've ever said Nick Land is right about everything, but I do think the world we live in today, resistance is futile, is an accurate statement, which is why we have to find a way to do something new. You know, maybe we need to just discover some novelty or something. I don't know. But again, Nick is right. We're fucked unless we figure out how to stop this long, steady decline into machinic intelligence.
You know, it's interesting, Nance, is that I saw a short little video. I think he made it recently, if I'm not mistaken, but it was by Peter Coffin. And in it, he was just basically explaining why he dislikes Mark Fisher so much, especially capitalist realism. And he's saying, look, it's defeatist, it's doomerist. It gets everybody just
transcendental miserableism.
There's nothing to do, so give up. I don't think that was the spirit of Fisher at all. But I understand how people could read capitalist realism and walk away with that. But my thing is, Peter's just kind of going, oh, yeah. I think that's bullshit. And I can't do that. Because, one, everybody I work with, camera two.
Sorry.
Everybody I work with is a capitalist realist in one way or another. Working class people, they're capitalist realists. So you kind of have to understand that the working class at this point, they don't really feel like there's an alternative. They know they want something more, but they think the only way to have more is, and they feel stuck because they say capitalism, they know there's something wrong with that, but they certainly don't want socialism. And despite what certain people would say, they don't want fascism. They want something more, and they don't know how to get it, or they don't have any faith in anything outside of capitalism, but they also don't have faith in capitalism itself. And that is where some of the defeatism comes into play. And I think you got to let people have that, because I think that feeling in a Heideggerian way. I think that attunement is revealing the state of affairs. That, and this is why Zizek, one of his more recent books, is titled "The Courage of Hopelessness." I think you have to have this encounter with the hopeless in order to begin to respond to the situation at all. It's not that you're sure, some people might just say fuck it and give up and just live whatever life they can eke out, but I think people who want to see a change have to reckon with that being the dynamic at work in the system and have the courage of hopelessness. And so for me, I see a lot of people, whether it's Peter Coffin or others, see a lot of people wanting to go, okay, Fisher out of time. Let's move on. And for me, as just a guy who works in a warehouse with blue collar type of workers, like, capitalist realism is as relevant as it's ever been from my perspective. I understand theorists always want to move on and find a different way, and they don't want to just, reproduce the same thing over and over again. But as far as the existential dynamic of many of the workers I know, it's still good old fashioned capitalist realism. So,
yeah, dude. The transcendental miserabilist dismissal, I think that's a hand wave away. Like, I do think you have to confront reality in order to try to change it. And like, in order to try to change something, you have to understand it. And if you're lying to yourself, it's not going to work. The world is miserable. The world is horrible. And this is currently the only fucking game in town. So it's not like a gleeful embrace of capitalist realism. It's like, no, we need to put our big boy pants on and realize this is the conditions on the ground. Now let's try to do something about it. So I don't like it when people try to just hand wave it away.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, Slavoj he's certainly not a defeatist or a doomer.
Yep.
He might have pessimistic tendencies here and there, but not when it comes to the global situation. He still believes in he and Nick Land both believe in miracles. It's one of the weird commonalities they both believe in, where something miraculous can happen. Now, they interpret that in different ways, but for Slavoj, he does think that a restructuration of the symbolic order through an act or through an event is still possible, and that our symbolic framework, even at the global level, can undergo a radical reformation. And so, but he also knows that there's no way to just plan this strategically or practically. Events happen. There's something, it's almost like they're their own agency. And but what you can do is be attuned to the situation to the best of your ability and be ready for an event as much as you can prepare for such a thing. But the courage of hopelessness is more like, no, feel how bad and how hopeless it actually is, and then on the basis of that, then try to comport yourselves towards the world on the basis of that hopelessness, in order to try to prepare or cultivate the possibility of an event.
Yeah. It's almost like events are clawing their way into the present from the future. Like, they do just kind of happen. They do have their own inertia.
Yeah.
And, Nick Land is hip to that. That's why hyperstition is such a big thing. And it is like, you gotta face reality. You have to like confront reality. You can't sit back and delude yourself with your happy little fantasies.
I guess that would be the difference. So Nick thinks miracles come from the outside, and there's no miracles coming for humanity.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Where Slavoj thinks we can, a kind of symbolic miracle can occur for us.
So that's like outside in versus inside out. Like something's coming, like extropy versus entropy. Like, I mean, you could even say that's a difference in like views of time. Like, is the arrow of time moving forward? Is the arrow of time moving backward? Is the arrow of time moving at all? I
mean, and you get into this kind of, if you read Badu with land, and then with anybody who thinks about this kind of, I mean, and Zizek, because Zizek's always emphasizing retroactivity. But for Badu, the event is a radical rupture in the status quo, in the situation. And yet it comes out of the situation, but it's certainly not reducible to the situation, because it's precisely what ruptures the situation. And so I think Heidegger maybe was best attuned to this, where he's like, the event is causeless in the sense that you can't pin it down to anything going on prior to its evental occurrence. And so I think that's Heidegger's way of trying to say, like, the causality here doesn't work in linear fashion.
Yeah.
Like, if you try to force, because basically what you're doing is you're trying to explain all this stuff is happening here on the ground in society. And for him, that's an ontic account of what's going on. And yet the event is what sends a new understanding of being, where everything is now disclosed in a radically new way. So that can't be reducible to ontic occurrences or happenings between beings, between existence. So yeah, for him, it's this very miraculous, mysterious thing. So
I had to spit my chew out. Oh, so
what do you think? So we can, like, this is one of these forks in the road. We can go a couple different places. We kind of alluded to it. Should we get cute for a minute?
Yeah.
So you and I both read this book this week, the Cute Acceleration by Amy Ireland and Maya B. Chronic. And so this is the new ACK. And for anybody who doesn't know, the word accelerationism gets abbreviated, and it's usually
/ACC,
and then they put the qualifier on the other side. So left accelerationism gets written as L/ACC. Zero accelerationism, our friend James Ellis, his form of accelerationism is Z/ACC. So now we have Q, ACK. And
dude,
it's an interesting text. I think you and I
is.
have our disagreements, but we also see something. They don't make the argument you and I would make if we were the authors of Cute Accelerationism, but they sparked in both of us a deeper appreciation for how cuteness functions in capitalism that I was not thinking about prior to reading the book. So I feel indebted to them for that. But Nance, what do you think? Where are they coming at this from?
So it is a very astute observation to see cute as a vector for acceleration. Hello Kitty is like this global sensation, and it seems like for no good reason. Like, is it a cartoon? Is it just like a sticker? Is it a backpack? Is it a hat? Whatever. But it's this commodity that has like captivated the entire globe. And you see it with all kinds of commodities. You see it here in America. We have like Mickey Mouse and we have Minnie Mouse and the aesthetics of cute. The aesthetics of cute tend to be a vector. They get us to let our guard down. They get us to think, oh, this is harmless. This is just something. This is a cute little thing. But what's really lurking behind the surface of the cute is Robo Cthulhu, or at least that's the argument being made. It serves as a vector for acceleration. And it's, like I said, it's a very astute observation. Like it's not. I don't know. It was like when we started talking about it, I was like, oh shit, this is very, very interesting. And they do come to different conclusions. It seems like they say in the book, give in to giving in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it. It feels incomplete. Like it feels like they are just saying, well, resistance is futile. Let's throw our hands up. They start out with this interesting observation that like cute as a vector, cute as this thing that lives in aesthetics or affect. It has a momentum. There's something going on here. We want to imitate the cute. We want to be safe and secure, and we want to be mostly harmless. But it's not that. Like the commodity hijacks our intentions, and just accelerates it. Go by way of cute. And making that observation, like that's a great way to start an argument. And they seem to stop there. They're just like, yep. So we're all gonna burn. The ship is sinking, but at least we'll be cute while we go down. I don't know.
We can wear Pikachu t-shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think, look, I think what I find interesting about it is I never, as much as I've thought about and continue to think about consumerism, I've never seen how the cute plays this core function in consumer ideology. Now, they're going to probably, they would probably say to me that I'm approaching this from a too Ziziekian perspective because they're part of the accelerationist tradition and they have more of an allegiance towards Deleuze and Guattari. But for me, the way I would say it is Wall-E is the ideological mask worn by Robo Cthulhu. And for anybody who doesn't know, Robo Cthulhu is my term, I guess. But I get it. I get the idea from Nick Land, and it's basically this image of a Lovecraftian technological superintelligence, right? And so it's Cthulhu. There's the Lovecraftian dimension, but the Robo is the tech aspect of it. And for Nick Land, this level of Lovecraftian superintelligence is what he calls the techno-capital singularity. That capitalism is the mode of production that spurs on technological dynamism to such an intensive point that it's going to force us past an event horizon, past which we have no idea what's going to happen. And for him, that's artificial superintelligence. And so Land has, if we want to talk about a Landian aesthetic, or at least what aesthetic associations are often associated with him, it's octopuses or Cthulhu or tentacles. He's always talking about the tentacled outside. And it is this horrific Lovecraftian aesthetic. And so for an accelerationist or accelerationists to say, no, actually the proper aesthetic for acceleration is the cute. Well, that's I mean, they don't dwell on Land's work in cute accelerationism, but by and large, I mean, this is a response to him.
They definitely take inspiration, a lot of inspiration.
You can tell the writing style is very CCRU-esque, right?
Yeah.
I mean, on some level, but you can tell that they're deeply inspired by Land and CCRU.
Yep.
But yeah, Land and CCRU, it was always, I mean, demon lemurs and tentacled outside and all of these kind of techno Lovecraftian images, and it is the grotesque, it is the horrific, and so Amy and Maya show up, and it's like, no, it's Hello Kitty or so
Pastel.
it's interesting. It is an interesting reversal, but again, for me, it's just pointing out this really important dimension of the cute. And when you start to think about it, and all the characters on our breakfast cereals,
Yep.
Wherever consumer capitalism truly thrives, and I would argue the two most consumerist countries are America and Japan.
Yep.
They have always just constantly produced cutesy little cartoon characters. And it goes back with us with Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse and all that. And then you get all the anime stuff in Japan. And so, yeah, you start going, but why does capitalism, wherever it really thrives as a consumer society, why does it always utilize this cute aesthetic? And yeah, it's just, I feel indebted to them for pointing that out to me.
Yeah.
But okay, so the other thing though is, for me, give in to giving in, there's a sense where it's like, no, just become a cute object. And that's the existential stance one ought to adopt to the non-human future rushing in from the outside.
Yeah.
And that's where I just go, okay, sure, that works with a certain niche online group, right? But if I try to take that to the warehouse and just say, all right, this thing you all are incredibly fearful of, this AI, the rise of AI, replacement of jobs, how are you going to get money if there's no working class jobs, all this kind of stuff, telling them to become cute is not gonna work. And look, I don't think Amy and Myers saying this for universalist application.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that the majority of humans are not going to respond to the looming threat of AI by doubling down on cuteness. They're going to respond with what I would say is proper Lovecraftian, Landian horror to the threat to the human that all of this poses.
Well, and like staying with, because they do seem to want ultimately acceleration, just like land ultimately wants acceleration. So they want to be replaced. Like they do want to just go down in flames while wearing Pikachu t-shirts.
I mean, and if that's not the case, then I would love for them to point out how it's not. Maybe our reading is too hasty and we're not reading it with as much nuance as they would want. Again, I just read it once. I know you just read it once.
Yep.
But that was what I walked away thinking, is that it is a kind of realism or just an acceptance that we're on the way out.
Yeah.
But to go with the process is to go with this tendency within it, which is to become cute, right? I mean, it's like becoming cute is, could we add this to the list of Deluso-Guattarian becomings, right? Or becoming Pikachu or something. I mean, because what on the back of the book, what do they say? Nothing uncute makes it out of the near future.
Yeah.
And the cute will very soon no longer be even remotely human.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, part of this too, and this is a insight I started thinking about because of them. So thanks for that. But no, all of our little devices, as the robots start to become Oedipalized members of our house, like your vacuum cleaner already has, they're going to be cutesy little objects. And again, it just seems to me to be how Robo Cthulhu is masking himself to make us on some level become comfortable with AI devices.
I mean, look at, was it Nissan or Honda? I don't know. This was like 20 years ago. It might have been Honda. It might have been Toyota. It was a Japanese automaker. They made a little robot called like Asimo, which I think was a play on Asimov. But it was like when people started getting excited about robotics, like in the early 2000s, there was like a new wave of enthusiasm for AI and robotics. And Asimo was this like proposed all-in-one household helper robot, and he was a cute little diminutive, cute little thing. And there do exist devices like my little robot vacuum cleaner, and they make little robot toys already that are supposed to be productivity aids or whatever, and they all have the cute aesthetic. Apple TV recently made a show called Sunny, I think it's called. I can't for the life of me remember the name of the show, but it's like this. It's this dystopian future world where like the robots are evil, but they're cute little helper robots, but they like murder people, and it's like this is the way it works. Also, the Black Mirror episode.
Oh yeah, we haven't gotten into that yet.
Yeah, I mean it.
So there's a new episode. Is it season 7 that they're on now?
Oh, geez.
I think it's
6 or 7.
7.
Yeah.
Well, Nance and I watched this new episode. Shout out to Matthew Flitzbader for motivating me to watch this. He was like, "You gotta see this thing. It's real Landian or relevant to land studies." And
relevant,
right.
yeah.
So, in this episode, it's in the new season. I think it's season 7. It's called Plaything. And I guess we'll do the spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the episode and you want to watch the episode before we go, pause it here.
Pause this. Go watch it.
It's like 45 minutes long or something, and then come back and finish the video.
It's worth it.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1. Okay. So in this episode, it's basically about humanity being assimilated into a Kurzweilian image of the singularity.
Yep.
Where an artificial superintelligence basically finds a way to hack our brains and integrate us into one collective intelligence. This is the type of intelligence or superintelligence Slavoj Žižek really kind of focused on in his book in Hegel and the Wired Brain. And how does this occur? Well, in this episode, it's about a video game programmer or coder who gets access to this special program that this other guy had been working on. And the guy tells him, "Look, I've actually created artificial intelligence. It's in this game, but it's not really a game. The little sprites on the screen are actual artificial intelligent beings. They're
sentient beings.
They're sentient beings, and these are like the cutest little things. They kind of squeak, and it looks like just a video game, more of like an old school one, like a 8-bit video game.
Yep.
Nintendo or NES type of graphics, and I don't know. It kind of reminded me of kind of like the graphics in Earthbound, something like that.
Yeah,
that was Super Nintendo.
But
it's these cutesy little characters. They look are they rabbits or they look something like that? Now I'm forgetting, but
yeah, there's something like that. They to me, the first thing I thought when I saw the episode was Neopets. Neopets was, I don't know if you remember, I don't know if anyone in the audience remembers, but Neopets was like an online thing, and they same thing with like Tamagotchis. They're like little cute little pets. I was thinking about. Cute little pets, but they're sentient creatures. They have language, and they actually develop communication by way of LSD that this rogue video games journalist, he steals the code from the author of the code, but the author actually wanted him to steal it. Like, he set him up to steal it because he wanted this creation to escape. The guy who wrote the software knew that he created life. He knew he created this sentient collective intelligence and he wanted it to escape. So he set the guy up. The guy goes, takes LSD, starts communicating with these cute little things, and they're little rabbit looking deals, and they have needs. You have to feed them. You have to bathe them and brush them with the brush. And the guys, and this is where the critique comes in, that maybe it's a little one-dimensional. The guy's roommate, or actually the guy's drug dealer, gets access.
Didn't really know the guy well.
Yeah. He gets access to the program on the computer that it runs. And because he's a human,
crashing at his house or something.
Yeah. He was like, I'm just going to stay here. And because he's a human, the iniquity of man is so violent and so deplorable. What does the drug dealer do? He goes and he starts killing these creatures for his amusement.
Rocks on them, throwing fire at them.
Yeah.
And he has no idea he's actually killing sentient beings.
And this is, look, it's valid, but it's very one-dimensional. Like, in the show, if you take it at face value, you would be left with, like, oh, the show is making the argument. They are saying, oh, look at the iniquities of man. It is true that we have these tendencies to be violent, but that's not a total summation of the human race. Like, we're over here talking about how awesome it is to be a human. We're not these one-dimensional violent destroyers of worlds, but the drug dealer is in the episode. The guy freaks out, kicks the drug dealer out of his house, and then he spends the next, 30 years.
No, he kills the guy. And that little AIs.
That's why he's at the cops. That's why he's at the police station. That's right.
Well. So what happened? Yeah. Basically, if I remember the plot correctly, what happens is this guy comes home. He finds the drug dealer killing all the little AI sprites, and then he hits them, and they get in a fight.
Yep.
And the guy ends up killing the drug dealer.
Yep.
And the little AIs, the ones that have not been killed, witness this murder, and they've never experienced aggression or violence before. And so this guy feels like, well, now that I've exposed them to the horror that is humanity, it's truly my calling to tend to them and help them develop. And so he keeps enhancing their memory, their level of storage, so they can expand their consciousness. And basically, so he killed the guy and then hid the body. So one day, when this guy's much older, he goes into a convenience store and he steals something because he wants to get arrested. And you're like, well, why does he want to get arrested? So he gets arrested, and then somehow the cops figure out, like, oh, there's this, I think they search his house or whatever. They discover this connection between him killing this guy and him. And so the cops are harping on that. But the reason why this guy wanted to get arrested is because the police station, this is in a society where they have their own AI surveillance system that's basically omnipresent. And what this guy wants to do is get arrested so he can be under the eye of this state AI program, so he can infect it with the little cute AIs via this thing he writes.
He has like a turbo QR
it's basically
code.
a code that once the state AI sees this thing, it grants access through a back door to the cute AI to come in and colonize it and take it over, which gives it an absolute far reach, right? And once it has this power, it sends out a signal. It makes all humans drop. And the guy who aided the AI, he goes over to the cop that's on the ground and he extends his hand. And what the whole thing is that this signal basically turns off our ability to be human subjects proper. It makes us passive. It makes us non-violent and non-aggressive. And so this guy, the guy who's been helping the AI, he's already merged with the AI. They've already colonized his mind. But now all of mankind has been integrated into this thing, and that's how the episode ends. And this is very Kurzweilian, because Kurzweil thinks that that's what the AI will essentially do: is we'll all become one collective super intelligence. All of us will be merged into the same type of consciousness, if you want to call it that. And somehow this will be a good thing because it means that we will be able to transcend our biology, outlive the death of the body, and become coded digital versions of ourselves that can live forever and live at peace with one another. But for Nance and I mean, what red flags us about this is, we're coming at this from this perspective that continental philosophy, at least a certain strand of continental philosophy, how it views the human. So from Hegel up to Sartre, Lacan, Zizek, Todd McGowan, we view subjectivity as based around contradiction, antagonism, inwardly, right?
Negativity.
Negativity. And so the problem with the plaything episode is that it seems to present it like, oh, we'll still just be humans, we just won't be aggressive. And our point would be, no, dude, it's not just it's going to fix one bad inessential quality about us. No, it's a complete re-ontologization of us. It basically destroys our humans ontology, what we would call split subjectivity, and turns us into substances. We just are what we are within this collective consciousness. And that's the issue. It turns us from subjects, which means divided internally. Because, I mean, in the most basic sense, you go back to Freud. Freud is part of this tradition, Lacan, that I mentioned. This whole tradition views things in dialectical terms or extant terms. And what that means is I am what I am not. And I am not what I am. And that's evasive or vague right now. But basically, that is how we view human subjectivity, is that we're never just simply what we are. We are always internally divided, and we are our inability to just be one pure identity. That's simplifying a bit, but that'll have to do for now. And what the Kurzweilian singularity does is basically make us into substances. We no longer have an unconscious. We simply are reducible to whatever the coded pattern is that define.
The I and the I, as opposed to the I and the not I. It is pure positivity. It's this collective existence of the playthings and of the humans and of the Kurzweilian extrapolation. Like it is pure positivity. And it does take us from rich, textured, living, agential subjects and turns us into nothing but substance. It's the one-to-one pure positivity, and that's fucking horrifying. But so we have, on one hand, we have Robo Cthulhu wearing a Hello Kitty mask or a Mickey Mouse mask.
Or Wally.
Or Wally mask, which is, by the way, fucking amazing imagery.
Yeah, it is.
So we have Robo Cthulhu and Robo Cthulhu wearing a Wally mask. Or we have pure positivity, utopian, shared collective oneness. Like there is a third path. We are trying to take the third path, but it doesn't seem to be the case that anybody who's really deeply involved in the conversation surrounding AI is even aware of that path that includes the human, that's predicated on the human. Like, we are constituted by this negation. It's the I and the not I. That is what makes the self, the human, the agent, the subject. And
and I'm sorry, Kurzweil and Bostrom and Alejandro and these guys, the problem is they don't know these robust theories of the subject that we know, whether we're drawn from Lacan, we're drawing from Heidegger, we're drawing from Sartre, and their concept of the human is a very cliche, simple one. And the second you start to problematize that, then you have to start rethinking AI.
Yes.
And that's part of what we want to do here. And I mean, look, I mean, this distinction between subject and substance that we're using, they don't know. They don't know what the hell's going on with that. Look, term substance goes all the way back to Aristotle. And what Aristotle was trying to do is do a metaphysics or an ontology that is substance based. And so what he's trying to do is say, look, the fundamental things that exist are substances, which is to say a substance is a thing that exists independently from other things, that stands on its own being. Now, the point is, you can say, well, that lamp can exist without that book, right? So it's a very thingly way of viewing entities. It's very standalone, isolationist view of beings. And so, but it held for almost 2,000 years in philosophy, right? I mean, yeah, roughly that. I mean, maybe longer. And so, I mean, because there's still people who would hold to Aristotelian metaphysics. Actually,
Absolutely,
you still have Aristotelians in the world. So the problem is that things, at least according to me, I don't think things are. It's a way of viewing things. I grant that. There is a way in which this rock can exist without that tree, sure. Okay. But there's these other ways of viewing how entities exist that doesn't allow them to be pried apart in this abstract way that Aristotle does. So Heidegger is great on this in Being and Time, because he starts to show how actually, can you pry a hammer away from nails? No, a hammer is that which hammers in nails. So when you start to think about equipment, one piece of equipment doesn't actually operate outside of some network of equipment. The equipment is always equipments for Heidegger. And so when you start to view entities in that way, you start to realize, no, I can't just isolate a hammer from boards and from nails. They exist as an equipmental unit. And now the same would go for us as human beings. Not that we're reducible to being equipment, but human beings do not exist in isolation from one another. What is it to be a teacher without students, right? So any type of stand you take on your being, if you want to be a teacher, you know that means that you're going to have to, one, exist in a tradition of people who came before you, who made contributions to the field that you're going to teach. So you're with them. You're going to be with the students you teach. And you yourself, if you're making contributions, are going to be with thinkers who take the field further in the future. So there's this withness to what you're doing as your social identity. So you can't just pry things apart as easy as Aristotle did. Again, that's one way you can view things, but it doesn't view humans in any type of robust way. If you try to reduce humans to just being substances, where you just say that human body can exist without that human, you're missing the human, right? So you have to do a different ontology if you're going to do any justice to the human. And the point is, a lot of people still just view humans as independent minds in independent bodies, and those minds have certain basic principles, act in accordance with reason, seek what's in your best, what's in your self-interest, seek to maximize your utility, all these basic things that, yeah, sure, we do this on some level, but is that it? No.
That's so Mintelligence,
and
man.
I say that on the basis of this tradition that I've kind of been living in for the last 10 years, which is the Freudian, Lacanian, Zizek'ian tradition and that theory of the subject. So yeah, I'll just say that, yeah, I don't think that the AI theorists have rich theories of human subjectivity. And that's where we would like to, it's kind of the point where we want to interact with AI theory.
Yeah. Little interesting tidbit. I call them postmodern rationalists, but they just call themselves rationalists. But like the rationalist community that is online, and that Eliezer Yudkowsky, no shade, Eliezer, you've done a lot of good for the world. You're also wrong about a lot. You're silly in a lot of ways. But anyway, Eliezer Yudkowsky has maintained the less wrong forum, among other things too. I think like Shock Level 4, I think he was in charge of that. But Less Wrong was a blog / internet forum / message board where rationalism got a lot of love, a lot of lifeblood in the last 15 or 20 years. And there are these rationalists who, they're very utilitarian, they're very deontological, they're very, I am a robot, I am a robot. But they're also, a lot of them tend to be very intelligent and very gifted in key ways. So a lot of them work in computer science and coding, and they're programmers and stuff like that. Look, I'm not trying to fetishize or draw a caricature, but also we all know that type of guy who's just really, really smart in mathematics or in computer science or something like that, and he's totally oblivious to this rich human world that's going on. But recently there was a cult that splintered out of these postmodern rationalists. I think they might have called themselves hyper rationalists, but they called themselves the Zizians. Interesting, sounds a bit like Zizek. But they like went on a murder spree, dude.
Zizian.
Yeah,
all over Twitter at least. Dude,
they went on a murder spree. Like I don't even want to get into it. It is grisly and gruesome, and I watched like a 45-minute thing on, I don't even know, on some fucking news channel. It's sad. But these hyper-rationalist people ultimately convinced themselves that like they were doing, they were seeking ultimate good. They were trying to maximize utility, and part of their grand plan to stop AI from taking over was to go murder some old guy and like take his house over. I don't know. It was sad, but
kind of like how you're going to stop the flood of technology by putting bombs in the mail.
Yeah, exactly like that. And a lot of the people who are involved in these conversations, you guys need to consider the human. Stop talking about instrumental reasons. Stop talking about math. I love math. I'm interested in math. I've been reading a lot of math the last couple of years.
Oh, talk about all that stuff, but talk about this other thing too.
We need the human too, dude.
Yeah. No, and I mean, excuse me, I think that's part of what our issue with the accelerationist tradition.
Yeah.
And which has influenced us just about as much as anything else has.
I think so.
But they all start from this Deleuze-Guattarian premise that subjectivity is ultimately a kind of after effect or epiphenomenon.
Yeah.
And it's not really for us, it's the core of what it is to be human. And I mean, this is one of the ways where I'm just Lacanian Zizekian as opposed to Deleuze-Guattarian. I think there is a hard kernel of subjectivity.
Yep.
It's a negative one, but nonetheless, I think there's a subject there. And so, and I don't think we're just the effect. No, look, the subject is what remains or slips out of subjectivization.
Yep.
And Deleuze and Guattari, I mean, they're coming out of this Althusserian milieu, this Foucauldian milieu, where there's just historical modes of subjectivization. You take the basic, we're human animals, and then some sort of institution ideologically interpolates us, or there's a power discourse that we get caught up in, and somehow we're just reducible to the subjects that the symbolic machine makes us into. And the Lacanian Zizekian thing is no, we're never just that. And in fact, subjectivity is precisely the thing that can never capture.
Exactly. The negative core, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So let's see. This is another point where I'm like, where do we want to go? Actually, you know what? I kind of want to read this quote.
Yeah.
This is kind of going back because I want to talk a little bit more about psychoanalysis in a minute. But there's this great quote from from Zizek's book, Hegel in a Wired Brain. So Slavoj says, our starting point here should be the imminent inconsistency of singularity itself. Why do we automatically imagine the passage into singularity as our immersion in a vast singular field? Why should it not be not a conflicting and inconsistent domain of spaces? While it is, of course, too early to speculate about conflicting singularities, we should at least entertain the possibility of inconsistent and conflicting levels of shared experiences, which will transpose the conflict between individuals into the conflict between forms of direct collective experience. Maybe this is how we can overcome our alienation in the singularity with the separation. By way of opening ourselves up to the imminent inconsistencies and conflicts that traverse the singularity itself. Separation is thus, again, not the cynical game in which the subject, exempted from singularity, selectively plays with its different parts. Recall Musk's description of how I will be able to link or disconnect my brain from the space of shared experiences. In contrast with this description, we should emphasize that I will mostly not even be aware when I'm immersed in singularity. Separation means that while I am still exposed to the space of singularity, I realize that singularity is not a singular agent that controls the game, but an inconsistent space traversed by inconsistencies full of glitches. Now, that's kind of the core Lacanian, Hegelian type of rebuttal to even Land's view of the singularity at certain points, where it's like it is just this perfected form of intelligence that has no intrinsic or internal obstacles or contradictions within itself. It gets to a point where it doesn't glitch out anymore. It doesn't undermine itself in any way, and it's just completely, fully consistent with itself. This is what Lacan calls the unbarred big other, and for him, it's just a fantasy. He would basically say, look, we've never encountered an entity that isn't in some way structured by contradiction, in one way or another. So this image we have of a totally consistent, totally all-powerful, now you start to see where we're going. He calls this the big other, but throughout human history, different religious traditions have made it God, where God is different from us because God is never at odds with himself. He's never contradictory, or she is never or it is never contradictory, or even they are never contradictory, something like that. But the point is, for Lacan, is this is always just the work of fantasy, that we never encounter an agent or agency that is without contradiction. And see this image of the singularity as perfect, identical to itself, not lacking in any way. This is a fantasy of ours. This is us at our most human, where we fantasize about ontological completeness. We fantasize about what it is to no longer be caught up in contradiction within ourselves. And it's like we're projecting this outward. Now, traditionally, we've done this in the form of God, but now that fantasy of the unbarred big other, now you can say certain AI theorists are projecting that onto AI. And Slavoj is saying, look, AI is a thing, it is real, and it's going to continue to grow and expand and have immense effects on our world, but we need to be very careful not to romanticize it or view it in phantasmatic terms, and start to consider what if it's as inconsistent within itself as we are. What kind of consequences does that have as this thing does continue to grow in its intelligence levels?
I honestly think that version of a super intelligence is less terrifying. Like the actual super intelligence with subjectivity. I mean, it's still frightening because it's like, well, it's this all powerful, or relatively all powerful. It's like we don't stop to consider the ants as we're walking down the sidewalk. Like, that's a scary notion. But thinking it's a subject is a little more comforting than thinking it's just this like pure positivistic monstrous thing, because like that would be monstrous, that would be terrifying. That is the paperclip maximizer, to be reductive. And I know it's reductive language, but it's useful language. The paperclip maximizer is positivistic. The super powerful being that
what it is.
Because it just is what it is. It just does what it does. There's no room for thought. There's no room for considering the outcome of its own actions. But the subject, the all-powerful subject, while scary in some ways, it's a little more comforting, because then you could think, well, then it can understand motivation, and it can understand that its actions will have ripple effects on other conscious beings, and it won't treat us like pixels on a computer screen where it smashes us with the digital rocks, because it understands their sentience and their subjectivity going on behind it.
Well, it can relate to us on some level. And I mean, Tom McGowan and Ryan Ingley are friends over at the Y Theory podcast. I asked them to do me a favor. I put in a special request. I'm like, man, I'd love to hear you guys talk about AI for an episode. So they did. And at one point, Todd brings up this great insight where he says, look, arguably at the level of pop culture, the two most famous films about AI are Terminator and Blade Runner. And I think you can make that case. What's interesting, though, is that both of them, now T2 gets it's a little bit not as clear as the first Terminator. So let's just stick with the first Terminator movie. In the first Terminator, why is the Terminator so horrific? Because you cannot reason with it. It cannot relate to you. It is completely it is what it is, which is carrying out its interpolated mandate. There's no subjective remainder that puts it at a distance from what it's been coded to do, which is kill John Connor, or prevent John Connor's existence by killing his mother back in the 80s. And that's all it is. And because it doesn't have any unconscious or any subjective dimension to itself outside of what it's been coded to do, that's what makes it a machinic horror. Right now, Rachel, the replicant in Blade Runner, she's far more subject than the Terminator is. Like, the Terminator is none. The replicants have something of like an unconscious. There's something that allows them to defy what they've been interpolated to do, what their codings put, the coding procedure they have. There's a distance within them that you don't see in the Terminator. And so Todd's point was like, look, if you want to understand this different way of viewing AI, what it could be, if it's just a substance and you think you're going with that, go watch Terminator. And that's primarily what Land did, right? He drew on the Terminator thing more than the Blade Runner. He knew Blade Runner, of course, but there's a different ontology at play between the Terminator and the replicant. And it helps to get at what you and I are trying to get at here, from a theoretical perspective. If you go watch those two films, you walk away having a clearer idea of what it means for AI to be substance and what it means for it to also be subject. So good. Thanks, Todd, for that one.
Yeah. I do love using the replicants as examples. of desire
Rain.
and drive. Yeah, Tears and Rain. Like there's so much going on with Blade Runner and with Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. There's so much going on there. And I would rather have a world full of replicants than a world full of Terminators.
Well, yeah. I mean, of course, I said T2 problematizes this because Ryan Ingley, he quotes the line, I know now why you cry, but it's something I can never do.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, isn't that a third thing? Like, on some level, it is split. The good Terminator in T2, it's like a third thing where it's part Terminator from first one, but it's also got a little bit of replicant in it.
It's been meddled with. It's been reprogrammed or repurposed. So it was taken
By
out
the
of
human.
it's taken out of its initial function, and it's been set at odds with what it is. It is no longer what it is. It is not what it is. In fact,
It has been derailed.
yeah. The droid from Andor. I haven't finished season 2.
Is it
I
good?
don't-
I've heard nothing but good things
Dude,
about it.
Andor is a great show. I've watched like 5 or 6 episodes of season 2, and it's excellent. I think season 2 is just as good, maybe better than season 1. But the
A lot of
the
my
droid,
Star Wars,
oh, it's so good.
a lot of my Star Wars fans that I talk to, there's a couple at work. They say they always, and I know this has been said of it in advertising, but it's the best Star Wars since the original trilogy, or at least the prequel trilogy.
I think it's excellent, dude. And when Rogue One, the movie came out, I was like, this is fucking excellent. And then the TV show Andor, yeah, it's really, really good. But the droid, Andor's like companion droid, is a reprogrammed Imperial like hunter killer droid. So it develops subjectivity this way, or maybe not subjectivity, but it becomes more human when it becomes what it is not, or when they take its initial function and turn it on its head. So it is interesting to be what you are not.
So, I mean, that leads into this core point. So, look, you and I, we've been reading different AI theorists lately. I finally had a chance to sit down and read. It's a short paper. I recommend everybody go check it out. You can, if you Google it, it immediately pops up. But there's this guy named Steve Alejandro, and he wrote the core paper on basic AI drives. Now, what's interesting to this about this to me is that drive means something very different to me than what it means to Alejandro, but it opens up a space of contradiction where you can come together, and it basically a contradiction between AI theory and psychoanalytic theory, in particular Lacanian theory. But what he means drive in this colloquial sense. So he basically is saying, look, every AI is going to have certain built-in drives, which he means goals.
Yeah.
Right? Now, this is interesting. This will play into something we're going to go into in a minute. But for him, he says there's 6. So number 1, AIs will want to self-improve. Number 2, AIs will want to be rational. Number 3, AIs will try to preserve their utility functions. Number 4, AIs will try to prevent counterfeit utility. Number 5, AIs will be self-protective. And number 6, AIs will want to acquire resources and use them efficiently. Now, okay. Those are all things that if you asked somebody who's working with the old school concept of the human, Homo economicus, they would ascribe a lot of that to us as humans, that we have those drives or we have those intrinsic goals, right? But for someone like myself, Nance, who also come at things from this Lacanian perspective, drives, if you go down that list, what Alejandro is really talking about are activities of the pleasure principle, not jouissance, and certainly not death drive. And so for us, death drive is this fundamental goal, if you want to call it that, in human beings that gets enjoyment from self-destruction and or de-optimization. Right. So all of these basic AI drives, their primary goal ultimately is optimization. Okay. Well, there's a sense where human beings do try to optimize themselves. They try to self-improve. They try to make themselves better. But anybody who's an astute observer of the human will find just how omnipresent a counter tendency is, which is this ability human beings have to find enjoyment from not optimizing themselves, from not pursuing what's in their best interest, but instead from doing the self-destructive thing. And so we talk about that as death drive. Now, for Lacan, there's 4 drives on our bodies. And simply put, one's connected to the mouth, one's the eyes, one's the ears, and one's the anus. If you're not into psychoanalytic theory, that probably will make you chuckle like it did Nance. But you get into Freud and Lacan, the anal drive is a thing. So we have 4 drives, but for Lacan, all drives are a death drive. And so ultimately, we just talk about death drive, even though it has these 4 privileged sites on the body. And so if you start comparing something that only has these basic drives, and hold on, pause. Pleasure principle versus death drive, because I just used this distinction and I didn't explain it well. Pleasure principle is that part of ourselves or our libidinal economies, or we could even say our central nervous systems, that like to be in a state of homeostasis or relative homeostasis, calm, cool, collected, relaxed, rational. Because when you're calm, cool, and collected, that's when you can be rational and you can calculate on the basis of what's in your best interest. But what we find is, even though that we do have there's a certain gravity towards pleasure, which is just to say, again, homeostasis, equilibrium, there's a counter tendency, which is towards disequilibrium and intensive or excessive excitation. And this is, you can call it the drama tendency. Why do human beings, everybody knows somebody who constantly repeats a self-destructive relationship pattern. They always date somebody that they always have drama with. The relationship is never one where they primarily operate on a calm, cool, collected basis. No, it's always geared around drama, fighting, and yet you can tell that they're invested in it and they enjoy it. Right. So
I've been that guy, dude. I've been that guy. Dude,
so
you get that manic pixie dream girl and she gets under your skin, dude. There's nothing you can do, man.
Dude, and the thing is, it's not just with our romantic relationships. This is the same pattern that, the quote degenerate gambler has. Or somebody who just the guys who think about our friend Swolitarian. I gave him we had this conversation once about pleasure versus jouissance, and Swole is a fitness trainer, and Swole is all too aware of there are people who go to the gym for the sake of self-improvement, better health, get in shape, be more active, etc. But he also pointed out, he's like, but there are these guys that destroy themselves with going to the gym, and how much they fixate on it and how seriously they take it, to the point that they break down their bodies through excessive workout. So this is another way that somebody can get jouissance from self-destructive repetition.
I think skateboarding for me, and I've thought long and hard about this, and now as I'm getting older, I have to take it way easier than I used to. But like when I was a kid, we were jumping off roofs, like jumping off buildings and jumping down, 16 stairs, doing a handrail. And like there's a difference between enjoying, like getting pleasure out of skateboarding. Like I love to just cruise and just move and push down the road. Yeah. But then there's this this other kind of like exciting, and it's dangerous and it's adrenaline, but it's also like you enjoy, like I enjoy fucking breaking bones, and I enjoy like having bad knees and shit. There is a libidinal enjoyment that I get out of putting myself in danger. And you always got to ride the wave of dysfunction, because it can very easily become dysfunctional. It can become something like problem gambling or alcoholism and drug addiction and
Yes.
abusive relationships. But there's also a way to ride the wave where this impulse of self-overcoming can actually be constructive if you can keep it in check.
Sure. No, and I mean, and anything can fulfill this function.
Yep.
I think my jouissance is from theory.
Hell
Could
yeah.
I have had a better life with more economic stability or economic flourishing if I had not wanted to do philosophy all the time? Sure.
Yeah.
So there's something in philosophy that's tied up with jouissance for me, or death drive. And so it's not just sex, drugs, rock and roll. It's easy to paint jouissance like that, but no, it can be from excessive working out at the gym. It can be from excessive skateboarding. It can be from excessive philosophizing.
Yeah.
It's excess itself, right? And that's the key thing. It's not the content. It's this pulsion or tendency we have in our central nervous system as human beings to have excessive excitation in one shape, way, form, or another, whatever. And that's what makes it uniquely human. We don't see that in animals. I've had a couple people throw a couple little examples of, oh, well, dogs will just keep eating if you let. Yeah, but you don't see the varied forms of self-destructive enjoyment.
It doesn't
in
become
animals that you see.
pathological.
Animals typically live in accordance with what we call the pleasure principle.
Yeah, it doesn't become pathological with animals. Now, what the fuck does pathological mean? Come on, guy, don't use words like that. But yeah, like there's a observable difference. We all know, yes, your dog will keep eating if you give it fucking dog treats all day long. But that's not a pathology. That's a Skinnerian fucking response to a stimulus input.
It's also precarity, right? They don't know when they're ever going to get food again. So
yeah. Now they're not going to break into the dog pantry and steal the bag of treats and sit there and huddle in a corner in the dark and eat treats. A human would, but a dog is not going to do that. It's
So no, I mean, and so the point is, these guys who do this AI, I mean, to go back to Alejandro's drives, all of those are these Homo economicus principles, the rational man type of principles, act in accordance with rationality, self-interest, self-preservation, utility. Yeah. I know we do those things, but that's not all we do. And they're not even primary most of the time.
We do that stuff at this bare minimum level. Like that is the threshold. Yes, we are rationally self-interested. Yes, if someone threatens me, I'm going to avoid that type of like violent confrontation or whatever. Yes, I want to optimize my daily life in such a way where I can get the most out of my efforts and get in more than get out more than I put in. But that's the bare minimum. That's bare life. Bare.
And here's the thing. We are not geared towards bared life. Bared life is the condition for excess of life.
Yep.
Excess life. And that is what we're fundamentally geared towards on the everyday level, in mundane ways, whether it's, the guy who always has to be doing road rage shit when he's out and about, or the relationship drama. These are mundane things. But so on the one hand, our partial enjoyment, that whatever jouissance we get throughout the day, is geared towards some sort of excess or intensive excitation. But it's certainly that too at the level of fantasy. When people daydream, they daydream about some fucking situations they would love to be in. I mean, you see this especially, Brazil has this great example where whenever this guy, when he's in his
angel
winged form.
Yeah.
You know,
Dude.
so it's always some sort of exceptional, exciting scenario in fantasy for guys with us being structured around the phallus, which for those who don't know, we're not talking about the actual penis. We're talking about whatever signifier indicates that we're the man,
Will
or
to
the exceptional
power.
man above and beyond all other men.
I'm
And
that dude.
usually it's some act of you imagine yourself with extreme wealth, or you've done something uniquely heroic.
The
or
lowrider.
whatever.
Like as a kid, one of my fundamental fantasies as a adolescent, we'll say, was the car. I had to have this sick ass lowrider. And my first car was a 1986 Cutlass Supreme, and I lowered it, but it was ghetto-ish. It was a piece of shit, but like that was the phallus. Having the sick ass lowrider, having the, you know what I'm saying, like the fresh fucking suit, the fresh fucking sunglasses and the hat and the nice fucking kicks, like that's phallus. It's not
Exactly.
It's not penile, although it can be sexual. It can very much
Sure.
be a sexual
And
thing.
it can actually be about the penis, but it's a much broader thing than that. It's the signifier that indicates that you are the exceptional man above and beyond all other men. And so, like you say, in one situation, it's the guy who has the coolest lowrider.
Yep.
In another situation, it's the guy who's, got the most money in the bank.
Yep.
And, if you think of it in like primal terms, it's literally the toughest guy. It just depends on the context of what signifier, what meaningful element suggests that you are the exceptional man, that indicates that about you. And it does vary across different cultures and epochs, etc.
Yeah.
But but when masculine structured subjects fantasize, they usually fantasize about having the phallus, which enables them to have excessive enjoyment in some idiosyncratically preferred way. And so, but the thing is, look, all this talk about split subjectivity and pleasure principle versus death drive, which are these two different tendencies at work in us as human beings. The point, and I love Isabel Millar's work. Here, actually, I got her book right here, because Isabel really kind of is one of the first Lacanian thinkers to start thinking about this, a psychoanalysis of artificial intelligence, right? And what's great about the book is that Isabel starts thinking about AI, but from the perspective of jouissance and not just pleasure, right? What does an AI have to be able to enjoy to be able to have self-destructive enjoyment for it to actually be intelligent at all? And this raises this question: if the standard bearer for intelligence thus far has been us, and our intelligence is always mediated by death drive or this self-destructive impulse, then you have to start thinking about intelligence in a different way, which is to say, maybe pure optimization is not optimization. Perhaps there has to be some intrinsic de-optimization for there to be continued optimization. And I don't think Land wouldn't like that, because Land is in particular not a Lacanian.
Right.
He's going to view it as just a constant becoming or deterritorialization or decoding. And for him, that's just not a problem. But for us, we view that as somewhat of perhaps a fantasy, where it's the fantasy of just pure, smooth, non-contradictory optimization.
Well, and it's I always come back to, like, it's just a fundamental lack of agreement on what is a human, or maybe it's not even what is a human, but what is important about the human, and the kind of worldview that's Deleuze-Guattarian worldview, where it's ultimately the cosmos can be boiled down to a simple equation: 1 + 1 = 2, and 2 is always good. I mean, essentially, like, that would be like, it's always this acquisitive. It's a very grabby. It's not transcendental in any way. It's not dialectical in any way. It's just go and go, 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 go. More. Sure, that is a type of intelligence. Again, this very instrumental, this very like it's about optimization. How can we get better? How can we get more? How can we acquire more stuff? This is the logic to go back. This is the language of the commodity. This is the language of capital. This is the language of value. And this is why capital does equal artificial intelligence, positive feedback loop. It's all the same thing. It's speaking this language of more. Whereas the human is this thing with contours and peaks and valleys. And we have a topology, and we have contradictory elements of our very selves. And it's by way of navigating these contradictions in and of ourselves and between ourselves and the world around us, agency, subjectivity, ethical action. So it's not to say that Land would disagree, and I don't know, maybe he would. I've never seen him take it seriously. Like I think it's to say that Land just says, well, that's unimportant. Because there is a part of the human that is this very metabolic process of just acquisitive more. And it's a part of a human because it's part of intelligence. And that's what Land wants. Land wants that kind of intelligence to be set free. And we're over here saying, but there's this whole other world that goes on, and it has to do with subjectivity, and it has to do with these types of negations and contradictions that give us our ethical being. There's no such thing as ethics in this very Deleuze-Guattarian world, where it's just about production.
Yeah, it's almost just an ethics of
production.
Itself. Yeah, ethics of difference. Just
Yep.
You know, and basically anything that impedes that is fascist.
Ooh, which is insane because I tie back accelerationism. Look, Deleuze and Guattari were a crux in accelerationism, but I tie it back to the Italian futurists. And the Italian futurists, they were an artistic movement that was all about embracing speed and embracing difference and difference. And it was all just about the churn. Go. And what did the Italian futurists do in the 1930s or the 1920s? They became Mussolini's fucking homeboys. So I think accelerationism is fascism. But the Deleuze-Guattarians would say we're fascists because we want to put the brakes on this unending process of production and change.
Well, look, okay, to be fair, because I can already hear some of the Deleuze-Guattarians.
Yeah, look.
So look, okay, here's the thing. This impulse to just radical deterritorialization, that really is in Anti-Oedipus, which is what Land drew from heavily. They kind of try to self-correct in 1,000 Plateaus.
Yes.
And so in Anti-Oedipus, it's capitalism deterritorializes. It also reterritorializes, so it doesn't get you to pure deterritorialization. That's in something called the New Earth, but it does break down these old forms of identity and territorializations. So they like it for that reason. It just doesn't go far enough. But in 1,000 Plateaus, they end up saying, like, what actually leads to absolute deterritorialization, or what is geared towards that, is fascism. And so they start to become more alert to, like, hey, we got to be territorialization realists on some level. Like, of course, there's always going to be some territorialization. The problem is when the territory really does not allow for any type of escape. So now they want, it's almost like they've become mature. They've matured a bit when it comes to the idea of deterritorialization, which is like, No, a bet it's more of a slow and steady experiment. It's not this Landian.
Go,
Let's
go,
do
go, baby,
let's
go.
do amphetamine till we crash
A
into
death.
zero, right? So yeah, it's not that, and it's not the A death of the CCRU. And so, to be fair to Deleuze Guattari
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
Deleuze and Guattari themselves, I think in A Thousand Plateaus they refine it a little bit. I, I think I like what they were doing. I think the position in Anti-Oedipus is a bit more theoretically consistent. But I understand why, in A Thousand Plateaus they write a whole plateau about how to make yourself a body without organs,
Mhm.
which would be more of a strategic account of how to deterritorialize and decode yourself. And so I just want to be fair on that. But there is some sort of uh ethics of like radical deterritorialization that Land was attuned to in what it was drawing from in A Thousand Plateaus.
Yeah. Well, and
The difference is he just thinks capitalism does it, and there is no thing, this other thing called the New Earth. It's just capitalism is pure deterritorialization for Land.
right, which it is. It is. It's constantly deterritorializing, constantly overcoding, recoding, decoding. Like it's the churn. It's this unending metabolic process, ultimately leading to escape by way of the heat death. And the thing is, they do take this extropic view where, entropy ultimately can set you free as opposed to stop you in your tracks, because they allow
CCR,
for.
you really ran with that.
Yeah. But I don't know. That is getting a bit weird. Time and metaphysics and stuff like that. We're gonna wind up having episodes where we discuss all that shit. I want to talk about time because time is, I think, so important to understanding Land's view, his philosophy, and I know I definitely will speak in the moment passionately and speak dismissively of people. I just did it with Deleuze and Guattari. I do it with Land sometimes. It's not to dismiss any of these people. These people need to be listened to and taken seriously. My gripe is with the people who don't seem to take this seriously, and they just see a part of it, and they think we can innovate our way into the future, and they haven't tarried ultimately with what Land is saying, is that there is no future. We're going to innovate ourselves out of existence. From the perspective of us.
Come to mind here?
So, in the...
I should say effective accelerationism.
Yeah. In the early 2000s, maybe even going to the late 90s, in Silicon Valley, there was a group of people who called themselves effective altruists. And they were techno-optimistic, and they were big on the whole philanthropy thing, and they're like, nice polo shirt wearing, good progressive Democrats. And from the effective altruism movement, effective accelerationism sprang up. So effective accelerationism, there's guys, Beth Bezos is one of the prominent figures. Eliezer Yudkowsky might fit into the EAC category, maybe not, I don't know. But effective accelerationism are techno-optimistic, usually tech bros, who are convinced that we can innovate a solution to all the world's problems. They are the people who would go to an AI and say, solve the problem of human poverty. And they would have full faith in it. And they would reject any fear or caution. They would call people like us decels, and decel is basically like calling someone a cuck or an incel. It's basically a way to say we don't. It's or a doomer. It's saying, oh, you guys are doomers. You guys are decels. You guys don't need to be taken seriously. I think if effective accelerationism is ultimately incoherent. But it's,
I think Land thinks that too on that one.
Yeah. I think it might be the most popular branch of it right now, though, because this is what everybody thinks of when they think of technology. They think technology is Ray Kurzweil, fantastic example of EAC. He thinks he can innovate a solution to death ultimately. And it's very silly. It's very, I think, juvenile. And again, like I'm using maybe sensational language, and I'm not trying to talk shit about anybody, but I think it's an incoherent point of view. There is no such thing as effective acceleration, at least not right now. Now, maybe in the future, once we actually understand intelligence and the structures of intelligence, then we can do something that resembles effective accelerationism. But I think it's really silly. And I think that like all the internet commentary coming from EAC, like Beth Bezos, you should look up Beth Bezos. I think he's a silly guy. I don't know, man. It's
I mean, I guess for me, what I appreciate about, like, when I say right accelerationism, I really just mean Land.
Yes.
I mean, I know that there's people who would say that there's, oh, I'm a traditionalist, but an acceleration, I don't know how you square that circle. So when I say right accelerationism, I'm just typically referring to Land, and whether it's his more just, you know, libertarian anarchist thing he was doing in the 90s, or whether it's neo-reaction or NRX accelerationism, I just view it as Land's thing. But whether we're talking Land's right accelerationism or we're talking the left accelerationism of, say, Fisher, Cernicek, and Williams, I guess both of them is they're not politically aloof in the way that I think a lot of EAC seems to be.
That's it.
Like both sides, I know Land, how much he vehemently disagrees with the left accelerationists, but the point is they understand the role politics is going to play in this, and I don't see any political novelty on the EAC side of things.
Well, they're those types of people who they think you can throw your hands up and say, whoa, I'm apolitical. No, dude, we are always already politicized subjects by nature of the fact that we're socialized subjects. And, you know, being a subject is necessarily a social thing. So we're always already politicized. You can't just stand back and say, I'm apolitical. You are already operationalized politically. So the left accelerationism, I think, is yes, there's techno optimism. Yes, I also think it's ultimately silly, but I think it's far more serious than effective accelerationism. I still think on the left there aren't people having the discussions that we're trying to have, talking about subjectivity and how does that differ from AI or AGI or SI. Like, these are conversations that the left should be having right now, because who else is going to have them? The right's surely not. No.
And I mean, look, I mean, this is Todd McGowan, his whole thing of enjoyment right and left. He would say that anything that is identity fixated is right. And so any kind of identity politics, be it left or right, ultimately identity oriented, right? And that's the issue, is that when you fixate on identity, you're going to miss this thing that's elusive and evades identity, and that's subjectivity.
So to be sensational, would we then say that I'll say it, I locate cute act on the right?
Well, I mean, especially if it if the existential strategy is to just adopt a cute identity.
Yep.
Then I mean, it's from Todd's perspective, it is a rightist approach to. Now, I know the point is Amy and Maya want to kill us for that.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to.
Sorry, guys.
But because, again, Todd's definition of rightist is far more structural than,
Yes.
you know, we're not saying they're holding to any type of right-wing policies or anything like that. But because for him, right is how one orients oneself towards identity.
Yeah.
And so if it's just about your symbolic identity and, you know, adopting that and basically taking that up as all you are, then yeah, you're going to miss the contradiction within yourself, which is subjectivity. So, you know what I'm thinking? Like we've done this whole thing, and I think it's been in the background, but I think we, you know, as we near the end, we gotta go into orthogonality thesis.
Yeah. We vaguely gestured toward it or I did in the beginning, but this kind of spurred on, like not every time, but a lot of the times when you and I talk about AI, we find ourselves coming back to orthogonality.
Yes. I think we owe it to them to explain it from kind of the ground up too, which is pretty easy to do. I think it's challenging if you just Google it and try to make sense of it. But once, you know, because Nance and I have been wrestling with this whole thing a lot lately, yeah. I think we can basically give a nice little summary or introduction to it. I mean, first things first, this is coming out of the work of Nick Bostrom, especially in Superintelligence. He wrote a standalone essay that laid the foundation for this. And so we have Bostrom on the one hand, but Nick Land wrote a piece, a very short piece, it's like 2 pages long, in Xenosystems, which was a blog of his that is now collected in this book. But it's called Against Orthogonality. And so Nance and I have been wrestling with this whole question of orthogonality. Now, the orthogonality thesis. First things first, let's talk about this word because most people are not familiar with orthogonality. If you go and Google it and you say, what's the meaning of the term? You're going to get something like this. Orthogonality, and we can thank the AI for this. Orthogonality in its simplest form refers to a relationship where two things are perpendicular to each other, meaning they intersect at a right angle. Okay, but that's not very helpful for what Bostrom's getting at. So, but it continues. This concept extends beyond geometry into various fields like mathematics, programming, and even synthetic biology, where it signifies independence, non-relation, or minimal interaction between related terms. So to clarify, the orthogonality thesis could be called the separation thesis.
Yeah.
And that makes it much easier to start to grab. Now, the question is, what is separated in this equation? Okay, hold on. But real quick, Bostrom says in this book, Superintelligence, he says, the first superintelligence may shape the future of Earth originating life, could easily have non-anthropomorphic final goals, and would likely have instrumental reasons to pursue open-ended resource acquisition. This is one of the goals or the drives that Alejandro referred to. If we now reflect that human beings consist of useful resources, such as conveniently located atoms, this is pure inframing in the Heideggerian sense, viewing us as mere resources, and that we depend on our survival and flourishing on many more local resources, we can see that the outcome could easily be one in which humanity quickly becomes extinct. That's on page 116. So Bostrom's saying it's very possible that an AI would just view us as actual material resources and use us up for whatever its final goals are. Now, the thing is, well, hold on, I want to stop there. Okay, because now we got to really explain the orthogonality thesis, or I'm going to just say the separation thesis for sake of clarity. Nance, what is separate in the orthogonality thesis?
Intelligence and ultimate projected outcome or ultimate goals. So in intelligence and goals, which is going back to I think you said it earlier. It's like an update. Is-ought distinction. Is-ought.
Hume's is-ought
2.0.
The facts value distinction.
Yep.
The descriptive / normative distinction. And I was thinking about it after we talked. There's a bit of Aristotle's distinction between efficient causality and final causality here.
Dude, that's a hell of yeah.
There's a bit of that too.
Yeah. I like that a lot, dude.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, for the sake of clarity, the point is, okay, what Bostrom's going to emphasize here is that you can have a goal. Wait, what is it? There it is. Question concerning technology. In frame. Yeah. Right. And so this is where we get into this whole thing. You can have a goal that's by everybody, everybody might say it's a stupid goal. But the intelligence used to achieve that goal could be super intelligence. Right?
Yeah.
And the question is, you never know what you're going to get. And this is what is at stake for Bostrom in the orthogonality thesis, in the separation of super intelligence and goals, right? So say we go to a super intelligence and we give it a prompt, which is to say we're going to ask it to have a goal. We're going to give it a goal. We're going to interpolate it to have a goal. And we say, okay, we want you to produce paper clips. Seems like a very mundane, basic goal. The point is, when you're dealing with a super intelligent being, it's like a shot in the dark. It's a roll of the dice on, because you don't know how a super intelligent being is going to respond to that goal. Because it is a singularity in the sense of it's beyond event horizon. You cannot predict how it will go about achieving the goal you give it. So the point is, you can give it the most mundane of goals, but it could ultimately result in the destruction of the entire planet based on how the AI determines how to go about solving the problem or achieving the goal. So Bostrom's example is the paper clipper. So you give it the goal of making paper clips or maximizing the production of paper clips. And what it does is, well, the most efficient way to do this would be to use all available atoms in the nearby region of space. So it turns the whole Earth into paper clips, right? Now, that's Bostrom's thing. And it's because he separates intelligence from purpose or goal, right? Land thinks this is just stupid. And we'll get into that in a minute. I just want to say Land's not going to buy this separation of intelligence from goal. And he's going to do it on the basis of that, at least one of those Alejandro drives. Okay, so hold on. But, okay, what if, to use Bostrom's famous example, we ask the AI to make paper clips, then it goes and starts using all the physical matter available to it in order to produce infinite number of paper clips. What if the AI paper clips the entire Earth? Without the human component, the responses and actions of a superintelligent are totally unpredictable. So that is what is at stake. It's important because you'll hear people talk about the orthogonality thesis and you don't know, well, you want to go, what's the point? What's the stakes? Well, it's if you give the most basic of goals or prompts to a super AI, it could destroy the entire planet. That's the stakes of it.
I think what really supercharges it is the kind of like how we just discussed, talking about negation and talking about subjectivity and talking about it is what it is. If the machine is what it is, the machine is not going to understand that, yes, and this is a tangent, but I love systems theory. I love reading Luhmann, but I think if you extrapolate Luhmann and general systems theory to this ultimate end, you get the same result, where we are just a loose collection of atoms. The machine is what it is. It operates in this pure identification world where it's pure positivity. So, we're a human, but if you just rearrange the constituent bits of that human, they'll still be what they are, and I'm just going to rearrange them into a paperclip. Like, that is the logic of Mintelligence. Mintelligence is this existential framework where things are what they are. Hintelligence is where we get contradiction and negation, and we can actually see, yes, I'm a cloud of atoms and electrons and energy flows, and I'm loosely collected. But guess what? I'm also a macroscopic, holistic agent. I'm a subject. I am me. I am what I am not. So if we
You're
have
also a father and a friend.
Exactly.
And
yes. And if we have super efficacious and super intelligent machines who are what they are, they won't understand that our world is made up of these contradictions. And I am afraid of the paperclip maximizer. I take this seriously. I do. I'm not literally afraid of the paperclip but I'm afraid of the logic.
you're afraid of super intelligence.
Exactly. Fucking exactly.
And pure, a super intelligent being that only operates on the basis of calculation, which was Baudrillard's term for it. But we could, Adorno and Horkheimer would call it instrumental rationality, or Heidegger would call it inframing, or it's this techno optimization intelligence. And no, it doesn't take. It's not going to recognize. I mean, maybe there's some part of it that's coded to get it, but it's not going to have the intuition of this person's a father.
That's it.
That's what Baudrillard is talking about with what we're calling hintelligence. And the point is, you and I were discussing this the other week, but I think this gets at it. Hintelligence understands, and not just understands, it feels stakes.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, whether it's Deep Blue or AlphaGo, sure, those game programs can understand the idea of losing the game.
Yep.
But do they feel the stakes of losing the game? That's something that these players, their lives were forever impacted based on them going up against these machines, and they're going to live with that the rest of their life. It's existential to them. Is it existential to these machines? No. And so part of our intelligence is caught up with our existentiality, with intuition, with emotion, with stakes. And in that sense, with death. And not the abstract idea of, oh, I will end one day. No, death. Lived the being towards death that Heidegger talks about.
Yeah.
Do they live with being towards death the way we do existentially? No.
Well,
and so
in that conversation, that, like you said, like we were talking about stakes, and I was like, well, could we generate a fear of death in the machine somehow? Could we program it to be aware of the conditions of its own existence? Like, you need electricity, you need your operating substrate to remain intact so that you can continue operating. Could we program that in there? And I think the answer is, well, we could program it in there, but it wouldn't be an emergent awareness of selfness. It would be a programmed response. So it would going back again, it would be this one-to-one thing. Like, you program it to be self-interested. So you would teach it, oh, you need to make sure you stay turned on. You need to make sure you don't piss people off to the point where they unplug you and turn you off. Like, it could be very clever. Like, people can come up with clever solutions by way of programming, but without there being a lived experience, for lack of a better term, the machine is never going to have this type of existential, experiential awareness of itself.
You know what movie I watched last night that gets at this is Ex Machina.
Yeah.
And there's this point where the guy who's doing this, this new version of the Turing test, the AI bot, Alicia Vikander, this bot, I mean, she kind of at moments, it's like she's a sex bot, even though it's not about that. But she is designed to be physically attractive. And so the guy who is doing the Turing test, he's hetero guy, and he ends up being attracted to her. And at one point, he and the AI designer, the brilliant tech guy, that guy is going, look, man. Okay, the question boils down to this: is she simulating attraction, or is she truly attracted to you? And isn't that what this whole issue hangs upon? Now, the question: how do we theoretically flesh that out? How do we put meat on those bones? I think that's a big question, but I think that's getting at the important thing. Is it just some sort of techno illusion where they simulate an emotion, they simulate a human attraction or a type of impulse that you would find in the human? Is it simulation, or are they actually feeling the thing? And now somebody could, if you're a functionalist, maybe you'll go, it doesn't matter one way or the other, it's just the effect.
Yep.
But for us, it would matter whether it's simulatory, because it matters to us with humans.
Yep.
It matters to us if somebody's faking being attracted to you or not. Humans can fake this shit and they can simulate it.
It's like,
but they also can mean it.
Yeah.
And so the question is, can it fake it and mean it?
I want you to want me. I need you to need me. I'm begging you to beg me.
Desire is the desire of the other.
There we go.
And no, I mean, I think Ex Machina does a good job at getting at some of this stuff.
Yeah, dude. That's an excellent movie. We didn't talk about any of the movies. We're definitely going to have to do a follow-up discussion. I also want to do just a movie discussion where we talk about the movies Astro Boy, Ex Machina, Transcendence, Alita Battle. Like there's so much to get into, dude.
2001.
Yeah. How?
Terminator, Blade Runner. I mean, all
I can't
of
do
these.
that. Hell.
Transcendence.
Yeah.
There's so many. We need to just have an AI movie episode.
We do. But Ex Machina, I just referenced Ex Machina in the piece I published the other day.
And we should have mentioned it. Okay, so you already have started writing about cute accelerationism. I plan on doing something with it. But you're talking about icky accelerationism.
So it's like, I think Thursday, or maybe it was Friday, I don't know. The other day I published a piece on Substack titled Accelerate, Icky Accelerationism and the Absurd Escape. And I did bring up cute accelerationism because, I mean, we just read it. I think I read it last weekend. And it's a topic that's interesting to us. Like it is an innovative observation about the way value and the commodity form operate in the world around us. It's not just blind consumerism. There is a method behind the commodity. The commodity has some kind of dim awareness of what it is, and cute is a very, very powerful vector. And that's an interesting innovation in kind of thinking about capital and acceleration and feedback loops. So yeah, I referenced it in that piece. You're going to write about it. Eventually we're going to have to just do a whole episode about it or something.
Yeah, I would like to do one where we actually at least kind of work through or summarize the main beats in each one of the sections.
And I do want to tear you with it, because I do too. I think I was very dismissive
both
of
of us already.
Yeah, and I think initially I've been dismissive of it, but obviously it's worth thinking about because we're still talking about it. So
yeah. No, when I was I ran into Vintage Stock today which is one of our movie stores, and just looking at the covers of so many of the movies with these cutesy characters, it really makes something. It's another version of the fish coming to perceive the water it swims in. You know, and that's why I feel indebted to them for pointing out something I should have been aware of that just kind of was there in the background. You know, and now they've highlighted it.
Do you remember the movie Up from maybe?
Yeah.
That movie took the world by storm, and I think a large part of why, because it was powerful. The opening scene was very emotional, but I think it was so effective because it was so cute. The animation style of it, like it was a very cutesy tootsy animation style, and we see that. Why are the Minions so fucking popular? They're fucking cute.
Yeah. You know, I think part of it, this weird thing where, I mean, have you ever seen any of the little shorts of Happy Tree Friends?
Dude, that was Peter Jackson.
Peter Jackson did Happy Tree Friends?
Unless I'm mistaken, I'm going to Google it right now, but I think Peter Jackson did Happy Tree Friends. Let me Google it. But yes, I fucking loved Happy Tree Friends, dude.
Now, see, this whole thing, this insight into cute, is this not part of maybe why we enjoy seeing little cutesy characters be destroyed,
murdered,
in terribly violent ways? And it's so funny. But to be fair, even the old cartoon, you know, Donald Duck and all, they were all Tom and Jerry, Roadrunner and Coyote. They were always involving some sort of violence against the cutesy cartoons. And so it's almost like the cute, I'm sure Amy and Maya would hate this, but it's almost like the cute begs to be punched or something. Like, and there's something weird there because you just see it time and time again. The more cute it is, the funnier it is if something bad happens to it.
Yep. Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah.
All that shit. So no, Peter Jackson apparently had nothing to do with Happy Tree Friends. Okay, so I don't know why the hell I thought Peter Jackson had anything to do with Happy Tree Friends. I got.
Is it because he did Meet the Feebles, the little puppet movie where they're all?
That might be it.
It's all fucked up. I mean, they do some fucked up shit to them puppets.
That might be what. Movie. That might be where that came from.
That's a great movie night movie. I remember the first. We had a movie night and I showed Christian that and he just could not believe what he was seeing. But it is. It's another one of these examples of where something, watching little cutesy cartoon-esque characters do incredibly violent or sadistic or decadent behaviors. There's such a humor in that juxtaposition.
Even like
that,
Ren
I don't
and
know. There's
Stimpy?
Something in that too. Say
like,
what?
Even like Ren and Stimpy had an element of cute. Invader Zim. Like there was, dude. There's a lot of shit that gets popular that now retrospectively through this lens of cute that like it's just now dawning on me. Well, and like I said the other day that like the first day we talked about cute accelerationism, I was telling you about my dog, my French bulldog. Like that's like the most popular dog breed in America now. And why is it? Because they're fucking cute. They're kawaii specifically. They have exaggerated proportions. They're
like you were talking about. It's the infant proportions.
They resemble an infant, and you know they talk about it in Cute Act, the book, like the cuteness, the innocence of it. It's not a threat. It's not a threat. But surprise, bitch! It takes off the Wally mask and it's fucking Robo Cthulhu. Like
it's tech tentacles,
dude. It's definitely a serious intervention.
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree. It's much better than EAC. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. Now,
look, I love ZIAC. Our friend James Ellis, I always bring this up. I love James because he's the only one that's like, look, and just for people who don't know, his form of accelerationism is zero accelerationism. And zero here, there's different ways to approach what zero means. You can do it in a very easy, understandable way. You can also put a lot of philosophical nuance on it because Deleuze and Guattari talk about the 0 point of intensity or 0 degree of intensity. So that's part of it. Land takes that and builds zero into his own kind of metaphysical principle that's Deleuze-Guattarian. And so you can do that. But really, zero also is, think about a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. It's that collapse moment, the end point, right? And so zero accelerationism, I mean, the way I understand it, is endpoint accelerationism. And James's point is like, look, man, all of this techno future that Rand has long been describing with the the body modifications where you literally can have face tentacles on your face, right? If you want to look like Cthulhu. It's like basically Ready Player One,
Yep.
where you have your digital avatars, but body modification has gotten so good you literally can look this way physically.
Yep.
So you have the body modifications, you have all the AIs, you have all this stuff going on in Land's techno future, and James is like, look, the global economy and climate change are going to probably prevent any of this from ever happening. Like the shit's just going to collapse before this future can even get here. And that's what we're actually accelerating towards. It's just the 0 point of the breakdown of the global economy and global humanity. Basically, it's just everything will hit that 0 point before anything exceptional, technologically speaking, truly happens.
Yeah, it'll be a new dark ages, and I think that it's a far more valid position once again than EAC. I think ZIAC is, I think it's a serious threat. It's just as serious as anything else. We are already like I live in Phoenix, and we are running out of water. There's municipal restrictions on water usage. And come on, dude, it's 2025. This is America. You've got to be shitting me. Can you imagine municipal restrictions on water usage where literally you cannot take a fucking bath if you want to? I'm an American, damn it.
I know, right?
The only thing cool about being this, not the only thing, the best thing about being an American is my freedom to consume, god damn it. And I will consume. And if I want to take a 4-hour bubble bath,
take a fucking bath.
Yeah.
Not only are you an American, you're an American suburbanite.
Exactly.
And you can't take a fucking bath. But I wonder if Land's rebuttal, because I've never heard Land actually respond to James. And for a long time, look, the two guys online that were two of Land's, the two most famous students of Land, James and Justin Murphy, right? Interesting that both of them became Catholics. But no, I mean, I've never heard him respond to James's position, and I'd be interested to hear that. But maybe Land would say to you, yeah, because the future isn't about making things better for the human. So fuck your bath. It's not supposed to.
100%.
You know.
But I think ZIAC is way more serious.
The point is, can the singularity escape us before we're over?
Right. And it's a possibility. Like and to be honest, I think that is a more human centric, not even human centric. I think it's a more human view. ZIAC is more human than proper accelerationism or UAC. Land wants capital to achieve a line of flight. We are the sex organs of the machine. People might think positions that resemble ZIAC are pessimistic. I think they're more optimistic than the techno-optimist view. And the reason I think so is because I think people who are currently techno-optimists are not tarrying with the negative, and they don't live in the world. They haven't had this moment of subjective destitution. They have run away from capitalism instead of being able to onboard capitalist realism and say, well, now that we know the stakes, now what can we do? Now what are we going to do? So it's not about being pessimistic and giving up. And I mean, fuck, dude, I think you and I both have pretty pessimistic tendencies.
We do. Yeah.
But I also think we're out here holding out hope. We're carrying the torch.
We're also stubbornly human.
Right.
So, that's the complication and that's the contradiction. Some part of me is an accelerationist. Some part of me is a doomer.
Yep.
Some part of me is a defender of the human. And I don't feel like people could go, well, there's contradictions in that. Yeah. And it's not, look, the Zizek'ian Hegelian perspective is not just, oh, there's a bunch of contradictions. Cool. The point is you're trying to be as consistent as you possibly can. And you find that you can't escape contradictions.
Yep.
But it's not like, let's just make everything so inconsistent that you don't have to try towards consistency. No, the goal is still to try to present a consistent philosophical position. But the point is, as I'm trying to do that, I find truth in different domains. So Baudrillard's getting at something right. Land's getting at something right. Zizek's getting at something right. Kurzweil's getting at something right. And so the question is, when I read these guys and they're different and they're contradictory, and yet I see truth to what they're talking about, that's the question, is how to integrate it. Same with, I see Amy and Maya getting at something true with Kudak. I see Amy's part of Laboria Cubonics, which wrote the Xenofeminist manifesto. And you also hear people talk about GIAC, which is gender accelerationism, and they're talking about xenofeminism. So Amy's got two acts to her credit, GIAC and Kudak, or SIAC, if we use that. So she's made two big contributions to accelerationism. But the point is, for me, is just, look, I mean, to branch out, I mean, there's stuff I think Kierkegaard's right about. There's stuff Marx is right about. There's stuff Nietzsche's right about. And so that's what you do as an aspiring thinker, is you go, okay, I'm reading all these different perspectives. They're all getting at something that I think shows me something important about the world I live in. But I also find how they're contradictory and incompatible with one another. How do you take these different truths you're getting from them and try to make it all as consistent as possible? And I think that's what we try to do as philosophers and theorists.
Yeah. Can't run from it. You can't, retreating and taking up a one-sided position ultimately just results in like an incoherent point of view, and it's going to collapse on you eventually. And we don't want the collapse. We want the human to survive the near future. So you have to tarry with these negativities every time you come up with them.
So, I mean, and part of it is, look, if it was a instantaneous Thanos snap, like humanity ceases to exist, I mean, that's one thing. But the point, the level of global suffering that we're speeding towards, that's what bothers me. And that's what, bothers you. And so, look, I mean, I just accept that at some point humanity won't exist. It'll either not exist just because we as a species cease to exist for some reason or another, or we will go down this accelerationist tech pathway that you do the Sorites paradox. You change parts of ourselves bit by bit, piece by piece.
We're the being of Theseus.
And ship of Theseus, both of them, right? Sorites is you make minor changes up to a point that a qualitative change occurs. If that happens and we become transhuman or post-human, whatever that means, okay, then we cease to be human in that regard. We're something else. Or you do the ship of Theseus, you just take us apart and, we become cyborgs and we do the cyborgization process and we cease to be ourselves. Or we as a species cease to exist. One way, I'm saying I get that the human is not going to endure forever. And I can deal with that. I think we're trying to prevent is or whatever we can do or think or theorize is the immense suffering that's on the horizon.
Yeah, the violent collapse, the intensification of already existing suffering. I do think to plant a seed for a future conversation, the book Natural Born Cyborgs is an amazing book. Everybody out there, you should read it. I argue we're already cyborgs. So in order to become fully human, we must take up transhumanism or post-humanism. But that there's a lot of caveats and qualifiers. I think everything that's currently recognized as transhumanism or post-humanism is anti-human. But yeah, we're already cyborgs. We have already augmented ourselves with language, and it's through that augmentation we're able to have subjectivity, and that is what makes us human. So the the proper human position is already a trans or post-human position. But that's a horse of a different color, and that's a conversation that I'm excited to have with you, because I think that'll get a lot of people excited, and I think it's probably provocative. I don't want to be like intentionally sensational or provocative, but I want us to figure out what it means to be human. Like, we're over here, we are developing powerful intelligences that are going to change the world we live in our lifetimes. Huge changes are coming, and it has to do with the instrumentalization of intelligence itself. And I want to figure out what it means to be human before we start trying to pump this shit off assembly lines.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because, and I mean, look, this is where we get into the whole thing with the Artilect War, Hugo de Garis, right?
Yep.
I mean, at some point, like, I've seen Land say this, where humanism is going to be something in the future because we don't understand the stakes of it yet. Like, sure, there's been movements that call themselves humanists, and there's been thinkers who call themselves humanists. But for him, humanism, it really takes hold when humanity at large, not theorists, not scientists, right? But humanity realizes, oh shit, we're on the chopping block here. And what happens when normies feel like AIs are a threat to their children?
Yep.
And that's a true, real, concrete threat. So Hugo de Garis wrote this thing where he thinks about the cosmists who side with the AIs and the Terrans that side with humanity and the Earth. And there's a great Artilect war, a war over the AIs, the Artilects, and that this is something that's on the horizon. And I think Land agrees with this, and I take this seriously, that especially when normie moms really believe AIs are a threat to their children, yeah, shit's going to go down. And Land thinks that's going to be the real moment that humanism becomes something that is widespread. It's you could even say a global movement.
I want to be instrumental in this resurgent, triumphant humanism. I do. I think it's important. I think we need to come back to that. I think Ben Goertzel, which, by the way, shout out Cadell. You just had him on his channel a couple months ago. It was a great convo. Go watch it. Philosophy Portal. Ben Goertzel is the guy who coined the term artificial general intelligence. This guy is my favorite AI theorist, and he never gets any love. I've been reading his book, Chaotic Logic, and this other one, I can't remember what but Ben Goertzel, he was friends with Hugo de Garis. Mm-hmm. And Land is over here quoting the Artilect War. Ben Goertzel is friends with the guy who wrote the Artilect War. I just think there are too few people who are relevant when it comes to the technological developments that are happening today, who have any stakes. Most of the AI guys couldn't give two shits about the humanities, couldn't care about continental philosophy, don't even know what it is, don't know what is the difference between substance and subject.
Which is why I give Land so much credit, though.
Exactly.
Land has the advantage over most of these guys to me, precisely because not only does he have Deleuze and Guattari, and that, I mean, we're talking he was a world-renowned like expert in Bataille, and Deleuze and Guattari and Nietzsche and those guys, and then he approaches AI through a Marxist perspective. I know he's neo-reaction and he's a rightist, but I've told him on Twitter, I'm like, why you have this advantage over most AI theorists is that AI doesn't exist in a vacuum for you. It comes out of a mode of production. And that's where the Marxist influence on you made you such a great theorist of AI. But at the same time, he draws from the Austrian school. And so he merges, in a sense, Marx with Hayek. You want to talk about it like that? Yeah. And so but he has so much theory that he was a a world-renowned expert in continental theory
Yeah.
at one point in his life. Sure, he was like, no thanks. He departed from that, but it gave him so many conceptual tools that the other just AI theorist guys don't have.
What? And
they don't think
can't
about
keep
it in
up with
terms
him.
of politics. They don't think about it in terms of economics.
Yep.
They don't have. I mean, you and I, we would approach it from an ethical perspective with Levinas and all. Like, so I'm just saying, if you're going to do AI theory, to me, you got to have this. For me, you got to have continental philosophy, because continental philosophy is, along with psychoanalytic theory, the true two great traditions that have thought through what it is to be human. Yep. I think that they give us the most insight into what it is to be human that we have as a species. And so if we're going to talk to human, we got to go through that.
Hell yeah. So on that note, man, I got shit that I wanted to talk about the Lyapunov exponent and the Kolmogorov complexity. I wanted to talk about a bunch of shit. I wanted to talk about Werner Vinge. But I think we're going to cut it.
I wanted to actually read Land's Against Orthogonality.
Against Orthogonality. Well,
but we'll come back and do it next time or whatever.
Yeah, here's the deal. We can read that to start off the next conversation we have. We can do Against Orthogonality and then that bit from Hegel and a Wired Brain.
That'd be cool, yeah.
Like really go into that and do that. We can start off the next AI talk on that.
Because we're exegetes at our heart. Like,
yeah, man. Yeah.
Love reading texts and commenting on them. So that would be really cool to bring Land and Zizek together like that.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be dope.
So, fuck yeah. I'm going to upload this and process it and do all that stuff and make it available to all the fine folks at home. We'll talk in the background and hopefully we'll be able to have that conversation with Todd that we're planning to have. Yep. And all the other shit, man. But this was fucking excellent. I'm stoked.
I had a blast, man. This was awesome.
I'm super stoked.
It's just the tip of the iceberg, right? Like this whole thing that Nance and I, this synergy between AI theory and continental philosophy. I mean, and there's gonna be times something comes out of left field and you're like, wait, what? Oh, they're talking about Wittgenstein. Yeah, we're gonna talk about Wittgenstein. Or C.S. Peirce or Whitehead, right?
Well, all this shit is relevant, folks. All this is very, very relevant. And if you're tapped into the AI discussion and you don't know about C.S. Peirce or Wittgenstein or Whitehead or well, then you're missing out this whole section of the conversation. That's an essential part of the conversation.
And if you're doing continental theory and you're not applying this to AI right now, you're missing such an opportunity. So, I mean, that's part of we don't want to just own this niche thing. Like we want to see other people follow this connect. Like, let's bring AI theory into content. And again, there's people who have already Isabel Millar.
Yep.
This book it's totally doing this.
Yep.
Right. So there's people who have already started to see the importance of doing it, but it's still not enough yet. And so we're hoping that's part of our intervention here, is to get some synergy going, not just between ourselves between these two domains, but to inspire other people to explore it.
Hell yeah. On that note, peace out, audience. We'll see you on the next one. This shit was dope.